canning process begins. And so you were seeing how real my space is, right? It's definitely lived in. And as you can see, my bins, my barrels of grain. But anyway, so I'm starting on the brothing, because that's the theme for this week. And so we're going to start with some turkey bacon. And so some people might be asking, why turkey bacon? Well, I'm glad you asked. I saw a recipe, and I'm actually going to post it in the description. A link from another YouTuber. I'm not necessarily saying I'm endorsing everything she does. She just had the most thorough video I have seen that had pertinent information. Like, it wasn't, a line of stories in it. It was straight to the point. What she's doing, why she's doing what she's doing, and in a way that you can easily just follow the narrative, right? And so what she did was she first started with her first run of her bones. Is she used bacon. Now, I don't know what kind of bacon she used, but I am Torah observant and I am health conscious. So I usually get, and that's only because I'm not trying to endorse Great Value, but that's the only brand in my store that actually says they have uncurd turkey bacon. And so the reason why we want uncurd turkey bacon, glad you asked, is because we don't want the nitrates and nitrites in our food that has been linked to being a carcinogen. So because we don't want cancer causing things or things that's going to increase the likelihood of cancer, we do not want to invite that into our bodies. So we get the uncurd turkey bacon. And now you may be asking me, why turkey, not pork? I'm glad you asked, because if we read the book of Leviticus, the Lord says not to eat pork, that with the hooves. And so, yeah, it's just my father says this is not food for you, and so I won't eat it. Now there are a number of health reasons that I can give you for why that is just a better choice for us. Back in the day when you had doctors who would tell you what you need to do to stop hypertension by things like changing your diet instead of giving you a pill so that you can continue slowly killing yourself, they would tell you to alter your diet by removing the pork. That was one of the things they would say to take out of your diet. So I don't want to eat anything, and I don't want to have the broth of abominable things, which the scripture speaks about. I don't want to have that in my food. So we're doing uncurd turkey bacon. So although today I really wanted to do salmon croquettes, because the process, at least for the first run, I might slightly change it by the time I do my second run, calls for 48 hours to let the bones simmer. I have to start today. I have a few other things to do this week, and I just don't have the 6 to 8 day time frame available to have to do this again. So far, I just wanted to start you with what I'm doing now and to kind of introduce you to the ingredients I'm going to use, which you can, again, when you watch the video that she did, you will know all of that. So one of the ingredients is uncurd turkey bacon, which we're going to eat. And then I'm going to leave all of the good juicy bits that, of course, turkey is not quite as juicy or as fatty as pork bacon is. So I'm sure I'm not going to get a whole lot of bits, but whatever bits that I can get, I'm going to leave it in that container because that's going to help to add the flavor to my bones. And I certainly want flavor, especially when I start doing my bone broth. So the other things that you're going to need if you choose to do this venture is you're going to need to have, if you don't have if you're using water that's not purified, if your tap water is not safe, you don't have a Berkey. I purchased 2 huge bottles, even though I'm not a fan of plastic water bottles. Anyone who knows me know this, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. So the time it would take to get my Berkey to produce enough water that the broth is going to require, plus the fact that we have to drink the water as well. And of course, water is used in so many other applications, including the grits that I'm going to cook. I decided that no, we're not going to do that. So I just went ahead and purchased some water. I purchased some garlic because we need that for our seasoning. And then I also purchased, I already had onions, organic onions, and I'm usually pretty a stickler about certain things being organic, and especially things that's going to be in direct contact with the soil, because if you're spraying pesticides on the plants, it's getting into the soil. So my reasoning is because I don't want to have pesticides in it. Now, whether or not our regulatory agency is looking out for that when they're allowing organic to be stamped on our products is a whole nother story, but I digress. I'm not going to go deep into that. So I got organic garlic. I got organic onions. You will need the whole onion. Of course, you're going to cut it up, but you're going to also use the skin when you do your first run in terms of when you roast your bones. So mine are frozen. So if you're like me and you don't have fresh bones to cook, you're doing it from frozen, you can absolutely do it from frozen. There are instructions on how you have to prep it if they're coming from frozen, but you certainly can do them. You can roast them or you can boil them in a pot. I want to get as much flavor as possible, so I think I'm going to roast mine in the oven, and I believe the temperature was at 350 to 400 degrees, and I will post the direct instructions because I can't remember how long offhand. But anyway, so I'm getting started. Today is Sunday, the first day of the week, and so we're going to see how long this takes, and we're going to see how well it comes out, and yeah, I'm excited. Now, you're going to also need like a cheesecloth and a strainer. These are other things you're going to need. You're going to need a roasting pan or a slow cooker because you're going to have to let it simmer for a couple days. I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, also whatever seasonings you want to use, you're going to need all of that. I don't know what else to really tell you. I think at this point, that's it. So, of course, salt, pepper, and, whatever other seasonings you may want to use in your broth, then set that aside so that you can do so. And so yeah, that's going to be the process, and we're going to see how it goes. And again, I don't mind being the pioneer, so I'm going to start myself, and then we'll go from there. Shalom. Greetings. I am not going to be showing my beautiful face to you long, but I wanted to have a touch point so that you can personally connect with me as we connect to this process, because it's about community, and whether it's living local or with the global outreach, it's important to be able to make connection with people, to see their heart as much as you can, right? Because you can't literally see inside someone's heart, but we can at least see by their words, by their expressions and everything else, because the rest of this presentation, you won't be seeing me at all. So, I am on the broth day. Yes, it is now time to make some good, my first rendering of broth for canning I am doing right now, y'all. And I got pretty much everything I need except space to put it when I have all these amazing cans of broth. All right. But I want to kind of go over with you some of the things that I've chosen and why I chose them. So stay tuned. Okay, first, because breathing is fundamental, this is the book that I recommend everyone purchase. It's an excellent book if you're going to do canning, because as much as I enjoy being able to present to you via internet, the reality is everyone is not going to always have access to internet for whatever reason. Okay, so you don't want your canning process to be completely and solely based on you following a YouTube recipe when YouTube may not be available to you. So having a book backup is excellent, and this is an excellent source, primarily because this book is very well written. So when you get to the beginning, of course, you go through the introduction to history, how why canning is important for food security and sovereignty, and that beautiful illustration of her pantry. So pantry building may be something we get into, because it's important to have some place to put this, once you have it. I mean, we have a refrigerator, but we know that's limited, but at least we have it. So having a container for your containers is not a bad idea. So like I said, I like it because see how you have 1 week. She breaks everything down per person. So all you have to do is double or triple based on your family's needs. So then you know how much you would need to sustain you for 1 week. If she gives you a sample meal plan, okay, for 1 week. And if you want to do monthly, same thing for monthly. And if you want to do, I think she even has yearly. Yes, a 1-year plan. A 1-year plan. So, you know, these are the things you need to know, right? And we're not going to get that all in one, video. She also goes to, and you will see here that she mentions this thing, food security with superb canning. Okay, so if you wonder what superb canning is they have their own jars, but you can also buy their lids, because anyone who cans, one of the things that is important to know about canning, and y'all excuse my mess over here, my kitchen is very much lived in. It's beautiful, but lived in. Got a lot in common. So, and maybe one day I will explain what those canisters are up there. But, so these are superb lids, okay? And the reason why superb lids is important as a product is because during the year 2020, she explains it in her book, because she's been canning for over 30 years, there apparently was some kind of change in the manufacturing of these, and she lost a lot of her food supply because she was using a specific brand, and I'm not going to brand shame, but she was using a specific brand of lids that failed her. And let me tell you, the one thing you don't want to do after you done spent 48 hours simmering your broth is have to deal with that. So here we go. Oops, sorry y'all, but I just thought about this might take me a little bit of time, so I don't want my broth to get too cool. So the one thing I noticed, this is my first time really major canning, but one thing I noticed about these ridges that's different from this is it has more grip. Not just that it's blue, that's an obvious difference, right? But I wish I could show you, and I'm not sure if I can, but like the ridge to this is not as deep as this one is. It kind of curls more. It curls in more, which I can see how that would be important in this process, because then I'm sure that means that it's going to fit on there a lot more snug when you put it on there. So anyway, enough of that. So I am going to switch out my broth, and this is going to be bone broth. This first one that I'm doing is bone broth. And here are my bone broth containers. Now, I have a feeling I'm going to need more than what I have right here. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these. And if I have to, I think I could probably get another one that I cleaned out. And I'm not going to clean them out because I'm just going to sterilize them in this pressure canner. So while I'm getting my broth out and doing that, I'm just going to put that on so this can begin to get the whole sterilization process going. And then that way, well, yeah, actually that's what I'm going to do first. So okay, y'all, so as much as I hate to admit it, there are truly some benefits to ChatGPT. So one of the things that's important in this whole canning process is that your PSI, which is, and I'm going to show it to you. I will say the unfortunate thing about my particular model of canner is that it only came with one weight gauge, which thank God the one I got will work for where I am. But there's apparently a science to this, and where you are located, your elevation will determine which weight gauge you need to have. Anything between 0 to 1,000 feet, and this was not the part I got from ChatGPT, okay, you can use a 10 weight gauge, but anything above that you will need a 15 gauge weight. And so the way you find that out, this is the part ChatGPT helped me with, is you just plug it in. So you actually do a search on what is my elevation, takes you to this site, asks for your address, gets your address, it tells you what your precise elevation is so that we can be good to go. Because I certainly I would hate to have come this far in the process, which is why you pre-plan, y'all, pre-planned. And just to put all of this broth in my refrigerator to wait for Amazon or whoever to bring me the appropriate size. So fortunately, we can keep going. We're good to go. Also, because, and I found this little fast tip out while looking for that information on YouTube, which sometimes the YouTube is just not going to be as helpful, okay, especially in terms of time. So what I found out was that because we are going to be heating this up anytime you pressure can anything, it's going to be above 10 PS. It's going to be above 10 minutes. It's going to take more than 10 minutes to do. And so you do not have to pre-steam distill your glass jars. You just have to make sure that they're very clean. So you could either do like I'm doing right now and sterilize it anyway, or you can go through each individual brand new jar you have and do a whole hot water and soap bath, cleaning out real good, let it dry and all of that. And right now, since we are on a boil alert, I think that the sterilization sounds like a very good idea. So that's what I'm doing anyway. But with that being stated, we're ready to go on to the next process. The next part of this process for me was, there was this little thing here. That was right here that I took off. It was right here, so you can see. So here is the front of my lid, which I hope fares better than my actual canner lid under water conditions. And here is this was right here, right? So it's basically like a cover, this little thing. So if you're getting the same one I have, this will be very helpful to you. If you get a different one, then obviously read your instructions and see what their instructions say concerning getting this off. So what I'm gonna have to do to get this part off is now I'm gonna need my handy dandy screwdriver. Okay, y'all, so for the love of God and the sake of your sanity, don't do what I did. This is the one thing in my process I wish I did not do. And that is do something that requires 4 different renderings in 7 or 8, that's a whole 7 or 8 day process, and do it just before you're going to take a trip. So, don't do that. So unfortunately, I don't have the tools that I usually have. My own set of tools in this kitchen, but I'm doing another project, yay for me, and that is actually somewhere else. So I'm using, fortunately I have backups, which you always want to have. The screwdrivers are just handy things to have. This is not the particular one I would have preferred to use, but it's what I have on hand. So we just unscrew this. If I get the right one, I can do that, because this is what we're going to put on there. My 10 weight gauge, which will work for my elevation. Okay, so I found the one that will work to unscrew this. And so that was not the sound I wanted y'all to hear. Oh, this is, I think, a reciprocating one. Ugh. Sometimes your tools. This is not the one I need. Excuse me, y'all. Note to self: this thing requires some elbow grease to get off. But we got it. So this is what you want to take off. There. And so then, so that you can see what it looks like, this is the part we took off. And here is the part we're going to put on. Okay, I'll make sure you take this part, this bolt and this piece off, so that you can add that back once you put your weight in. So and you're going to need to make sure you tighten this, because if the degree to which this was tightened for me is the expectation, then you want to make sure that you have had your Wheaties today or whatever, you know, food supplies you've had, because it's I said it took a little bit of work. It wasn't for the faint of heart here. Okay, y'all. Okay, so that process is done. Didn't take real long. Hopefully this is not something you have to do a lot of. But this is it. So we should be ready to go with the pressure canner portion of it. Oh, now y'all, it's time to get brothing. Okay, so there's two different techniques that were used for this, and I'm not doing one of them, even though the benefits of one is you can let the broth cool, right? You can let it cool, and then that may mean an overnight cooling. Well, when you have limited time, we really don't have time for that, right? No. So we're just going to get the fat out another way. But the purpose of that is you let it get fat, because obviously fat gets gelled up, and so then you don't have to worry about that whole process if you do that. Well, currently I'm going to have to worry about it because, yeah, it just means basically the second choice I made, which is the one I shared with you in the newsletter. That one allowed you to do it straight from the pot. You do have to do multiple strainings. So just make up your mind. You can lose, 8 to 12 hours, or you can gain those hours and just have to do more, more straining. So I'm choosing to do more straining so we can get this process going. Come join me.
Okay, try not to be super distracted by all the stuff I have. But I'm not exactly sure what's gonna work best for me yet, so I'm trying a number of combinations here. So I'm gonna want a slotted spoon. I am using a strainer, but of course it's wide tooth, so I'm sure it's gonna be fat that's gonna get through there. But that's why the cheesecloth is my other option. Now I do also have some flour sack towels. But we just gonna have to see how that works. Okay, so, but since we're straining out more than that, it's okay because we're also straining out the vegetables. As stated, and it made sense to me, the lady whose recipe I used, she explains that actually can sour, so you don't want the vegetables in there. So we want to get not just the bones, and remember we're going to reuse these bones, y'all. So we're going to get the bones out. And again, I got a towel underneath it because she's already prepared me. This is going to be a messy process. And certainly doing it the way I'm doing it so that you can see what I'm doing certainly means it's going to be a messy process. Now, I'm not using 20 pounds of bones, so I know I'm not going to get nearly as much. I could probably, though, do this bone thing 4 times or 8 times and still get me a good amount out of it. The bones are not cooked to to this end here. Okay, y'all. After 48 days, this is long coming. I'm not gonna make y'all go through all of this. but you get the point. You want to remove all of your bones, and you want to remove all of your fat, and you want to remove all of your vegetables. Okay, so I got all of the meat and vegetables out. Um, straining this fat out is going to be a whole different level of work, obviously. But again, I did get that out because my broth is still hot. I'm probably not going to be able to get a good bit of my fat out on this first rendering process, but it's okay. I will be able to get out of any big chunks though. Any vegetables I did miss. And then of course, again, the holes in this is pretty big, but that's okay. As stated, you're gonna have to do it multiple times. So I have a second strain I'm going to use for the other. And this grass-fed and finished really was not a lot of meat on it. The people who provide these bones, they skinned it pretty good. It's not a whole lot of meat. Of course, I would expect there'd be more on 20 pounds. I mean, I think I may have 3 pounds of meat that I used. Which again, the larger your crock pot or roaster to do this in, the better, because you can of course put more liquid than I could put in. And that's just the reality of the situation. But you do what you can do. Either way, because we get to do this multiple times with the same bones, we still come out on top. Amen. Amen. Ooh, y'all, this is... So cool beans, we got that time. Whew. So I'm gonna move this out the way since we're finished with that. Now we're gonna let this container take center stage, because now we're going to use this one, and I really don't want it. I prefer to keep things in my stainless steel or ceramic. So let me see how I'm going to work this out, y'all. Okay, I found a stainless steel option. It's usually what I use for my baking applications, but I had to put 2 layers of the cheesecloth because one just was far too thin. I didn't feel like it would be I didn't feel like it would be good enough for what I want to do. Now you got to be careful with whatever kind of strainer you have, because again, as you can see, hopefully you can see I have a gap there, so I have to really be careful, but you make do with what you have. And make sure this doesn't fall, because now that has actually fallen, even though it has a little handle here to try to keep it in place. But we don't want that to happen because then we'll have to start this whole process over again. So I will show you what it looks like after I go through this. And if it still does not seem like all of the grease or whatever it is that's in it is out, then I will do another rendering of this process. So, and I may the next time do it with that cloth that I was telling you about, sackcloth that you can get from Walmart. I was getting them actually for my bread making, for sourdough bread making, but I feel like this would certainly do the job for the flour sack for keeping out the things we don't want in it. But we'll see how we go with this. So far so good, you guys. It's picking up some stuff, but it's going pretty quick. And I could tell there's definitely some fat in here, so I'm certainly going to do another rendering, and I think I am going to do this flour sack for this next one. And I think I'm just going to leave this where it is, so they just add another layer of this process to this process. But this is like liquid gold, y'all. I mean, beef bone broth and grass-fed and finished beef bone broth. I don't know if you priced it, but it is extremely expensive. So, you know, it's like this. You're going to either spend in time or money. And again, like the video, if you watch the video I sent, if you think about it, you don't have to do it once, right? And you would yield so much more than me if you have a roaster doing the same thing. So if you have access to bones, you know, I know everybody is not going to have access to it, but if you have access to bones, I would highly recommend, you know, taking advantage of doing your own broth. I know, you know, especially if you don't live in really big cities, you may not have access to it. But if you can find yourself a regenerative farmer, split a cow with someone if you can't afford or have space for a whole cow yourself, man, it's going to be well worth your money. So essentially what I'm going to do is let you see what I have here. And actually, I'm going to clean this bowl out because I'm just going to use it to go back for my next round. You don't need to watch me do that. So here's a quick snapshot of what was the residue that was left to kind of filter and clean out our broth. And so again, the next time I'm doing this, it's going to primarily be to try to catch some more of that fat. So round 2, y'all. Yeah, I definitely think this is going to catch more of the fat. I mean, if I had the time to wait for it to cool off, I really would, but I do not. So I'll just be washing this towel because, oh, sorry, y'all can't see that good. Because this is as you can see, I got quite a bit of towel here. But remember, it was for a flour sack. That was its original purpose. Fortunately, I have 2, so when I do my sourdough, I'll still have what I need. But you see how much longer it's taking? So I really feel like this is going to catch a good bit for me. And I'll probably have enough time while I'm doing this to begin assembling my jars, because after this, I'm going to want to put them in my jars. And I'm going to bring this very useful tool, 2 other tools that I got with my super ant, which I got plenty of tools, but one is this funnel. And two is this for when you're doing your headspace on your jars. If you need to have 1 inch, 3/4, so forth, then this will allow you to measure that. You just place that upon the jar, and I'll show you. But we're going to do that when it's time to pour it in to our containers. Y'all, I can't tell you how happy and excited I am about not having to buy broth. Oh, now I have bone broth and beef stock broth. Yeah, because I will be doing this again. So as soon as we're done with this process, I do the whole canning thing, then we'll be ready. I'm gonna be, once I get this in here, wait for the little jiggling to happen, keep it at the weight it's supposed to be. My next thing is going to be to process the bones again. I'm gonna have to remove all of the onions and vegetables that I had attached to it, process the bones, and then we start again. But the next time, I am not going to be doing 48 hours. I am just going to render this down to 24 hours. So tomorrow at this same time, I will be reprocessing this. Yes, tomorrow at this same time, we will be doing this again. So it'll be a different, I probably won't have as many jars, I'm thinking, simply because yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have the same amount of jars, but I'm not gonna have as many jars because I think tomorrow I'm not going to do the bone broth. This is gonna be more of my beef stock. And so my beef stock, I think I'm going to use my 32 ounce, my quart. And so I won't have probably as many jars canned at that point, but it's okay. We'll do what we do, but I'm thinking the process will be a lot faster because I'm gonna have a lot less fat, so I shouldn't have to do the straining more than one time. And especially if instead of doing a cheesecloth, I just start with this, I should only have to do the straining one time, and then we just put our jars together and here we go. And so we can it. So it seems like almost a waste though to only do like maybe 2 or 3 jars at one time. But the alternative around that would be if when I do the other one that's going to be 12 hours, if I were to, here's rendering number 2, which is interesting to me. This is before I before I put it in a pressure canner. It does look awfully light. I did add a half a teaspoon of salt to each jar, except for I think the last 2. Yeah, except for the last 2. But ended up with 6 instead of 5. So that's good news. Shalom.